Hello and welcome back to Raised by Giants, where we talk all things spirituality. I'm Ryder Lee. Tonight's guest is Ryan Burns, but before I introduce him, be sure to check out Honey Colony website for amazing products like Superior CBD, Colloidal Silver Elixir and Maker, energy supplements, health and beauty products, and a bunch of other really great ethically sourced products. And if you use promo code RBG10, you'll get 10% off your entire order. Check the links in the description. Also, if you would like to make a donation to help the channel grow and me produce more content, you can donate at PayPal or buy me a coffee to help support my work. It is 100% completely optional. The show is still going to go on no matter what. Check the links in the description for donation options. Thank you. So without further ado, introducing tonight's guest, Ryan Patrick Burns. He began researching the Uintah Basin and mysterious Skinwalker Ranch years ago. But when his passion for answers could no longer be quenched, he left his corporate job in Salt Lake City and moved to the desolate and remote basin to investigate the ranch full time. Ryan now owns property overlooking the ranch. He hosts the popular podcast, Hero Paranormal, and has written about his experiences investigating the Skinwalker. Hello, Ryan, my friend. Good to see you. Thanks so much for coming on. How are you doing?
Man, doing great. It's an honor to be on. I love talking to you, Ryder, and I'm glad that I'm back on.
Well, I'm very excited to talk with you here tonight as well about something that I don't really get to talk about too often, especially with a researcher such as yourself who's actually been to Skinwalker Ranch and investigated it. So if you could, Ryan, give the audience a little background on who you are and what got you to this point and what got you interested in all things paranormal.
Yeah, it was, as many times when you make contact with something beyond the veil, it seems that it is a personal experience that kind of threw me into this. Not one I was looking for. I was dealing with my own issues at the time. I had an injury. I was working as a fly fishing guide at the time, and I had broken a toe, which is kind of a whole anomalous. We could do a podcast about that sometime. Very strange. And I was very healing from this injury, and I was told I couldn't work or get the toe wet. So I was kind of out and about looking for fresh water to fish, possibly for clients or myself, and going all over the basin. I went below a man-made reservoir at the time, known as Bottle Hollow Reservoir. It's become quite famous since then. At the time, none of this really had, when I say none of this, I just mean the paranormal aspects surrounding shapeshifters and skinwalkers didn't have a whole lot of traction. So it wasn't in the media, it wasn't on TV, it wasn't something that was kind of people were aware of. So I was just looking for fly fishing water. And I followed below the reservoir to where I assumed small creeks would be. And on a random ranch road, I had an experience with something that seemed to possess this power or this ability to do things humans can't. And it disguised itself, or at least it appeared to me, as an elderly Native American coming down off a rocky bluff. It had a blanket over its head. Don't know if it was a male or a female. It was what I know now to be a very harmful type of witch. Now, at the time, I thought it was just an elderly Native American coming down off a bluff. And I rolled down my window in my truck and I said, "Hey, can I give you a ride somewhere?" Trying to do the Good Samaritan thing. Wrong thing to do. It immediately climbed into the vehicle, shuffled in, kind of got in. And I remember it looked very necrotic. I could really kind of see a side profile of its nose and part of its facial features, but I never saw any eyes, barely could see some necrotic lips. And, I said, "Hey, where are you going?" And within seconds, it seemed to be going through my Rolodex of highs and lows in life, kind of like archonically feeding on my emotional highs and lows and getting to know me in a way that I didn't like. It was sort of like a mind rape. And in the Navajo culture, a skinwalker is a type of harmful witch that is able to disguise itself in many ways, and it can to pursue its goals. But fast forward, I was found about 3 hours later, back at Bottle Hollow Reservoir, hanging out of my truck. The seatbelt was holding me in. Some very nice Bureau of Indian Affairs officers were there, asking me what had happened. And when I told them what had happened, they started kind of talking amongst themselves. And I remember them saying, he definitely got nabbed by the Skinwalker. And I had never heard that term. I didn't know what it meant. So
approximately how long ago was this?
This would have been late 90s. So it was sort of a new thing, you know, at least not to them, but to me. And it is, let's see, it's a legend among many cultures here in North America. And it's a very real mythological truth is what I came to find out through researching it throughout the years, you know, looking into things, buying the best books I could on the subject matter, investigating other locations. I just started like reading into it. And it was frightening. So I tried putting it out of my mind for a while, joined corporate America, did my time in a cubicle. And it was always kind of gnawing at me in the back of my mind, like, what happened to me that day? So I started investigating online, and I came across a wonderful website at the time, the Utah Ufo Hunters. It was aliendave.com, and it had some interesting information about this particular area, the Uintah Basin of Utah, and the terror of the Skinwalker and the shapeshifters that seem to roam this area with reckless abandon. Home is there for them. And in Navajo culture, there is a curse that has been put on the Ute, who are the tribe there locally in the area. This was due to some shenanigans, some bad blood, let's call it, in the past. It was something that the Navajo at the time found unforgivable. And so they released the Kraken, so to speak, or their most feared and loathed magical entity. And that term, even though it is associated with magic, it's never used for healing. It's not used for healers. We should not confuse these with like a nice shaman, because it's very different. It has fast access to the same magic, but it is usually governed by different principles and rules. So again, I started going through the books and reading up. A lot of these books are super hard to find, super expensive, if you can even find them. And the stuff they hold is super scary. So I was so intrigued that I started investigating on weekends. Every free moment I got, I would drive up to the Uintah Basin and look into this phenomenon. And it became very real to me. You know, I went with others. It became very real to them. A group of us would go out. It is something that it's not a matter of if you see it, but when. And fast forward a few months of doing this weekend warrior thing all the time, and I started looking for property up there. And I said, you know what? I'm going to get to the bottom of it, as so many people think they will. And I was planning to move up to the basin, just get like a trailer, some 40 acres or something, a mule, and call it good, and investigate full time, 24/7. Well, it didn't work out that way. Everything I was finding was right around this epicenter of activity where my experience took place. And my parents said, you know, it might not be a good idea to be right there. Maybe kind of give yourself a buffer, 10, 20 miles, something like that. So I took their advice, and that's what I did. Moved up full time, started investigating full time, and it was amazing. Some of the video footage I got, some of the archived photographs, things like that during that time period, to me, it was amazing. Little did I know this was just kind of business as usual if you put yourself in these hot spots and are willing to just sit down and watch. So I became very intrigued by it. It is a very real phenomenon. It does interact in some way, or I should say maybe make contact with things that people would consider otherworldly, UFOs, ghost lights down in valleys, things that we thought at the time might be military spy drones, would pursue us. And the reality is, it's hard to tell whether once you get to a certain level of technology, it's hard to tell whether which technology you're dealing with, whether you're dealing with military advanced technology that is trying to interact with the phenomena itself, or whether you're dealing with an ancient, possibly artificial intelligence of some sort, or old magical technology that has the same characteristics. So without rambling, that's how it started.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say is like, is it a spiritual phenomenon? Is the Skinwalker like a translucent kind of being that can take on the appearance of other entities and animals, or are they legit physical beings? I mean, if they are physical beings, and how are they able to shapeshift? Are they so far advanced psychically and telepathically that they can make it appear that they shapeshift, or is it more of like a technology that they're using, like a super advanced technology?
Well, it's kind of my unscientific opinion is that the Skinwalker has deep roots and a lot of lore, and it's sort of been relegated to the darker members of, or those who have dark arts adeptness or are able to partake in these rituals. And the things that have to be done to partake in this ritual is very dark stuff. As far as to answer your question, I do think that there's a little bit of both going on, and probably other things too. I've heard stories from other people where you'll have a smorgasbord of activity, everything from lights in the sky to lights on the ground, creatures, and then possibly even portals taking place. And they sort of piggyback on one another. So one particular story that stands out to me was an individual was a researcher, a scientifically trained researcher, was watching what he believed was a portal opening up. And as he was watching that, he got that strange feeling on the back of his neck, like you do when you think something's watching you. And he turned over and he saw an alien gray, kind of watching the same show, so to speak. So there could be multiple things going on behind the veil. How they interact is not for me to say, because I'm on this side of the veil, at least at the moment. So it's definitely a fact, in my opinion, that there are witches that disguise themselves as animals through a manner of shapeshifting. And they do so for a variety of reasons. Most of them are negative, like the same reason you, let's say, don't like that your neighbor, leaves the can off the top off the garbage can and the wind blows and blows it all over the street. This would be something that you or I would probably take like no big deal. This particular type of entity would not take it as no big deal. They would get even immediately. So anything that bothers them, they get even immediately. They very much envy others. They are very jealous of others, especially those living in the light. They are very materialistic, and they have zero emotion for anything human-like, including themselves. They've almost transformed into an entity that just kind of is a shell of a human. So while it's an unscientific explanation, that is my general broad understanding of, according to Navajo legend, why they would disguise themselves as such entities and to what ends. Now, there's other things taking place too. There's other magic that, you hear magic eyes only, the majestic 12. There's a lot of inference to the government and our military industrial complex spending billions of dollars on black budget technologies. And they very much are interested in anything that could be either a threat or that could be weaponized to conquer a threat. So on both fronts, they have to delve into this. It's that others would call toys, that look a lot more like something you or I would distinguish as military. There is also a large amount of military presence, especially in the skies. I don't know to what end, but you do see military, Huey helicopters, a variety of newer advanced technologies that people are aware of, some that they aren't aware of, and everything to small triangles, which very much look like drones. In fact, a very, very eerie story was a gentleman who was in the area, one of the first, and he was a rancher. He thought that this was military initially, and he would go out there with, I believe it was a Betamax or a Super 8. Compared to our technology now, it was a really bad camera, but back then it was top of the line. And this rancher was a man's man. He'd go out there in the middle of the night trying to protect his family. He'd hide out and he would hunt this phenomena much like a hunter would hunt its prey. He would get behind something to hide, and he would stay quiet and still and wait for it to interact with him. What he found in one particular instance was very eerie. He saw what we would consider a triangle nowadays flying around. And there were some other phenomena taking place that night as well. To kind of make a long story short, he began to move a little bit, and one of the vertebrae in his back popped, as it does a lot of times. And usually something, even prey, a cougar a mile away isn't going to be able to hear that or see that. But this particular thing immediately reacted to when his vertebrae popped and turned in his direction and started coming towards him. So there's something very advanced about some of the things in the air and stuff on the ground that you might interact with.
Have you seen what would be described as a UFO, any kind of physical craft? You mentioned triangles there. Have you seen that with your own eyes?
Yes, seen it with our own eyes. We've gotten multiple video reels of it, sometimes far away, sometimes up close, sometimes big, sometimes small. And it's very uncanny the way these craft are silent, and they tend to be able to do what they want to do. They can be silent, they can be visible, they can be invisible. Sometimes you just see the points, and other times the whole thing will flash. So it's tricky. It's tricky. You don't know what you're dealing with.
So you've actually investigated the Skinwalker Ranch. You've been on the property before, correct?
That's something that is a bit of a hodgepodge of how I have to answer it. And the only reason is because of neighbors, cultures, traditions, folklore. I now own a property, as you said, that overlooks the majority of what is known as the path of the Skinwalker, which is this verdant valley that goes from northwest to southeast, and it is bordered by a very beautiful rocky red rock mesa. And it is the most studied scientifically, it's the most studied hotspot on the planet, apparently. So whether myself meeting that shapeshifter that day had something to do with me kind of going down this path or not, it has become something that is hard for me to let go of. And it sounds super weird, but I kind of, have taken the stance that even if this is a really bad thing, let's say, even if this is, like in the, 30s and 40s, the way people were hunting grizzly bears, this was a really bad thing. These things were killing people left and right with reckless abandon. Well, if the shapeshifter phenomena, the Skinwalker, is a really bad thing, the real story is there's not that many of them. And this is unique and I think important. And I think it's important to not try to destroy it, so to speak, because there's a lot we can learn from it. And I trust that our government and those who are spending gobs of money researching it are doing just that, because there's a lot of unexplained phenomena that everything's unfortunately not love and light. I wish it was. That would be the perfect world. Unfortunately, sometimes, and certainly in this case, these creatures of folklore are very much real. And that is beautiful in and of itself. Much like a great white shark is super scary, there is a certain beauty to it. And I think we need to appreciate that.
Have you witnessed any animal mutilations anywhere on the property? Any kind of animals showing up without any blood, like the typical animal mutilations anywhere?
That is a great question, Ryder, because it's gobs and gobs of them. There's spots that have so many bones that even if you video and take pictures and show people, they wouldn't believe it. There's no rhyme or reason to some of these locations. And on the property that I own, we've noticed that there's spots where these things will just pile up, and it makes no sense. You don't know. It's almost as if they're just dropped there. It's like a garbage spot. Sometimes we'll find dogs with collars. I mean, this is somebody's pet. Other times we'll find animals that shouldn't be in the area, peccary or wild boar. Other times we'll find full-grown, huge animals, like you said, cows, elk. As far as the cattle mutilations, that's a very interesting topic, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that was, to me, something that I unfortunately stepped in and didn't know what I was dealing with. I probably should have done more investigation and research prior. Oftentimes, these animals are surrounded by areas of vegetation that are dead. There could be bad things around them, not only bad juju, but you can have radiation, other things that may affect the neurological parts of the body. In a recent particular case, I was up with another researcher. It was in the middle of the winter. We were camping up there, freezing our butts off. And we did come across a dead cow. We immediately went towards it. And what we found was that it had some of these things that shouldn't really be taking place for an animal that dies natural death. That wasn't the worst of it. When I came back home, I got right next to it and I was checking it out and doing all of this. As you see many, popular TV shows and movies and even old movies, you just getting in there and checking it out. And I remember that my right foot was right up next to the animal. And there was a point where I could kind of feel that like my ankle and foot were like kind of under it a little bit as I was checking it out. No big deal. Came home. And what I noticed was I started to lose feeling in that foot. And it was totally numb, as if it wasn't there. I went to the doctor, have it checked out. And he said it was neurological damage in that region. So I started looking into books and things and realizing, like, what can I do to bring this back? I don't want to be gimpy and walking on one leg the rest of my life. So I talked to some people that know a lot more about the subject matter than myself. I started doing some martial arts type things with the foot, with the training. Got a slabway massager to like sort of massage and keep the blood flowing in there, and a variety of other things. Well, eventually it did come back and get better, but that kind of goes to show the dangers that are possible, at least neurologically, as human beings. We're pretty sensitive, and yeah, it can be catastrophic. So if anybody that checks that stuff out, just be careful. Just be careful. Give yourself a buffer. Look into the stuff before you go out there, and definitely take safety as your number one concern, because some of this stuff can hurt you.
Have you done any research to see if anyone else has experienced anything like that with animal or cattle mutilations? Have you talked to anyone that's experienced that numbness anywhere on their body whenever they've been around any of these animal mutilations?
Yeah, it's really quite scary. There's many cases. In fact, it's in the hundreds at this point that have been documented and recently declassified by our government. But yeah, some of these sites, there's very traumatic things that happen to people. Injuries that can't be explained, radiation burns.
That's what I was just getting ready to say, was probably something to do with radiation.
Right,
from
right.
the mutilation itself. But go ahead, sorry to interrupt.
No, I think that's a good point to make, because that is very likely one of the contributing causes and factors to this. It is power that is unhuman, so or beyond our capability. And you hear about this, whether it's in the Bible or the Romans or the Templars or the Vatican or the Illuminati, the Masons. You go into these old historical documents, Native American cultures, and whenever anybody sees what they would consider an angel or a demon, they're horrified, first of all, on both counts. They're scared to death, and they're immediately aware that they are dealing with something that is beyond their scope of control or power. And that is the closest way that I could describe some of the things that someone may witness. Because when you're dealing with something that can take time and space and manipulate things around you, you're kind of just like the guinea pig, so what I tend to do is use some of those same practices, not that they're overly, unrealized. Most people have them. Say a prayer when you go into these, to whatever your higher power of your understanding is, and just say, hey, keep me safe. That's number one. Number two, making contact would be great, as long as it's, like acquaintance, like in passing, like saying hi to somebody that's getting on the subway. You don't want to sit in their front room and have dinner with them and, then take a nap in their bed. So just being aware of that is super important. And if things get hairy, no pun intended, get out. There's nothing wrong with that.
So some people have like theories about the animal mutilations and cattle mutilations. Some people think that it's straight a extraterrestrial phenomenon, that the extraterrestrials are abducting them and then dumping them back down. And then some people think that it's the military that's doing it, but I never really understood why the military would be abducting cattle. Like, couldn't they just buy all the cattle that they need to do any kind of experiments on or anything? But then I'm thinking, when we're talking about this, well, what if some of it has to do with the Skinwalker itself? Because if it's a physical being, then it would have to eat, right? So could some of these, this is just a theory, I'm just throwing stuff out here, could some of them be attributed maybe to the Skinwalker itself? I mean, we know that there's, animal mutilations all over the United States, and probably all over the world, that's been happening for a really long time. But I'm wondering if the phenomenon maybe in the Uintah Basin has something to do with the Skinwalker itself.
That's a really good question, Ryder. You touched on a lot of good points. Yeah, I'm with you that at least in some of the magnificent investigations that top military that is now being, as I said, many of these things are being unclassified, and we're finding out that, hey, it's not, one or two people getting hurt. It's a lot. There is a variety of things that can hurt these people. And many of these mutilations, as you mentioned earlier, are found bloodless. There's no blood, completely eviscerated of any blood in the body. It's just removed, or it's done somewhere else and they're dropped there. It seems as if super precision-like surgical quality materials are being used, but they're heavy and they can go through bone. I mean, it's almost as if you had a scalpel, but it's the size of a machete with like a huge piece of lead along it. It's just super powerful and scary, almost machine-like, the way that these animals are processed and basically mutilated. And it can happen in a matter of seconds or moments, and sometimes without even a sound. People won't even hear a sound. They'll turn around, and a cow that was just there is now there in multiple pieces with no blood. And that can really mess with farmers' heads, obviously. To include the last part of the question, which I think is super vital and super important, is there a human characteristic, much like a shape-shifting witch, involved? In my opinion, my humble opinion, absolutely. At least my research, talking to locals, some who even claim to be skinwalkers themselves, there are a variety of things taking place, and many of the locals know of people who they call skinwalkers. I mean, one very tragic and sad case that happened recently, a close friend of mine who used to visit Space Wolf Research quite often. She was very involved and very intelligent, very informed about the subject matter, local, and she knew exactly, who was and who wasn't, and she would name them off, and she would tell you, that, if you go down Indian Highway outside of Mighton at this time of night, you're going to see this person walking on the road. Check this out. And it's like, whoa, like her cues and tips and tricks were dead on. Well, she died of under very unpleasant circumstances. And this is oftentimes where a lot of this folklore comes from. It is, it's scary. Now, the good news is, in my findings, these shape-shifting witches, the Odysee, he who walks on all fours, it can also be a she, they can't be doing this all the time. They can't basically go out and party all night all the time as a shapeshifter. It has its consequences. Those include high fever, loss of consciousness, vomiting, blood. Extended skinwalking can wreak havoc on the human body or the human part of the body. So it's almost like a shaman who is on the other side too long or goes behind the veil too long. You hear these cases very often, whether it's good or bad. If somebody is doing something too much, they get lost in it and ungrounded. So they will slowly. So that's the good news. You don't have to deal with this all the time, but it is a matter of time. If you're out in these areas and you put yourself in positions where you may see something like a skinwalker, it's just a matter of time before you do. One particular case or example is the gathering that these witches do. And by gathering, they are grave robbers by nature. They need these materials to do many of their rituals, including human hair, human bones, skin, and they'll take your jewelry too while you're in there. So that's just a plus. So cemeteries have become an area where these types of things may be witnessed. It's frightening to think that there's this stuff going on, but I've seen it myself. So I was just told, don't look them in the eye when you see them, look away. act like you're like, you're just high and by, you're just going past. Don't slow your vehicle down, keep moving. If you're walking, don't stop, keep moving. And because the option could be fatal, so.
So you think that the Skinwalker is like a human by day type of thing, and then a Skinwalker by night? Is it is
I
like yeah, go
It's
ahead.
a tricky thing because I got really into remote viewing, and I was trying to find correlations and correspondences, things, similarities between what I was hearing from people who knew more than I did, and kind of, comparing it to remote viewing. But is it like Teen Wolf? Probably not. Where you're playing basketball and you just turn into a. The way it was explained to me by a variety of people is that there is a very magical mental thing going on. It is not dissimilar from remote viewing in that you can kind of get there. So they're manifesting. Remote viewers are doing something totally different. However, something important to remember is that all skinwalkers are witches, but not all witches are skinwalkers. So it's what they're doing that takes them there. The skinwalking witch is going through a ritual, first of all, to kind of like set that foundation to when they actually do what they do. And it's including a lot of these darker arts that we've kind of like barely touched on, the bones, the hair, the skin. The times of the year has a lot to do with it. And a lot of times they work in groups. 3 is not uncommon, and it's a very powerful, that you see a lot of reports of people witnessing 3 at a time. And not only do they have each other's backs, but their mutual belief in this kind of turns into that.
Amplifies it.
I have witnessed people around a campfire. I was told what bluff to go to, where to look. I didn't think anything was going to be there. And I went over to the bluff and I looked over, and there were 3 people in camp chairs with a small fire in the middle, small enough that it was not visible from a distance. And they were like moving in and out, you know what I mean? Like all together, like they were moving in and out on this fire. And they were murmuring things that were kind of escaping my earshot. But I noticed that as they were moving in and out, the fire was like literally growing with their energy. And it grew quick enough that, it would like, when they would move, the fire would move significantly. And that was enough to me. That was a guide to me to kind of like rely on my guardians. And I knew, hey, this is the time to leave. You don't have to see where this goes. You just know that it's real. And a lot of the stuff is like that.
Yeah, I would have been like, my curiosity would have got the best of me. I probably would have tried to stick it out, but I understand why you dipped out. Are there any kind of Bigfoot or Sasquatch sightings that's been reported on in the Uintah Basin as well?
Great
Because
question.
I know that it's a home to a bunch of different kinds of phenomena.
Totally, man. Explorers back in the 1800s, up where I was fly fishing and worked for like a decade, it was very well known that a lot of these mountain men and explorers were witnessing Sasquatch and Bigfoot at the time. The very strong and folklore in the area lends a lot of credence to that. And a lot of the alleged paranormal activity is blamed on Bigfoot and things of that nature. I've witnessed things actually that, I'm trying to think. It's been a long time. I signed an NDA, but it was a long time ago.
Spill the beans, spill the tea, Ryan.
I'll kind of go as far as I know I can. I went with a crew. It was before it was their first, let's see. It was up in the Uintah Mountains of Utah. And these guys know what they're doing. And they handed me a thermal imager, and there was an area where there was purportedly what they call the protein flow, where the Sasquatch kind of trim these areas so that they can come out at night, hunt, and go back to their lairs and do so without being seen. And, you know, there are telltale signs, like you look up a certain amount of feet and it does appear as like all of the branches have been kind of like manicured and landscaped. So if you needed to make a quick hunt or like escape, you wouldn't get a branch to the head type thing. And this is the stuff that this very experienced, intelligent crew of individuals was looking for. They were also looking for like herds of particular protein animals like deer. And it was at night. I remember there was a crew behind us that was working. They were changing out a helmet cam from one guy to another guy. There's about 6 of them, or maybe 4 to 7 of them. And they were all kind of helping each other change the helmet cam because it's a heavy device that has to be moved from one researcher to the other. I was with another investigator, and we were quite a ways down the path in complete darkness. We weren't using our headlamps. They were. And I remember we heard a tiny little twig branch snap, just snap, tiny. And up went the thermal, looked over, and there it was. And it was behind a tree, hiding behind a tree, looking at the guys changing the head cams. It was only about 12 feet away from this crew of guys. And they couldn't tell it was there. So, I mean, Jedi ninja skills, right? And I got on the walkie-talkie. I handed the thermal to the other individual. They saw it as well. I said, hey guys, you got one about 12 feet away. Don't overreact. Well, that was the wrong thing to say. Everybody freaked out. This thing took off up a tree, much like you see an islander go up when they get coconuts, kind of hand over hand up this tree. And I thought it was in the tree. More investigators came somehow. And this is where I don't know, this is where I get confused, because there is that class of Bigfooter that believes that they're dimensional. And there is that class of Bigfooter that believes it's a nuts and bolts or flesh and blood animal. Now, I was 100% sure. I knew which tree it went up. I knew where it was. And when the whole crew got there and the investigation was going full swing, you could tell that some stuff had been built up in the tree, as if kind of like a tree house up there in that particular tree. But it was not in the tree. So I don't know where I fall on that. And I guess I don't have to choose. I can be somewhere in the middle. But I have seen them, and I've seen them at night. I did see one in the middle of the day on a horse out in the middle of nowhere, where you would not expect somebody to be wearing a fur coat, which is exactly what I thought. I thought it was somebody wearing a fur coat, just walking around like, this is weird. And it dusted us. I was on a horse and it ran faster than the horse. So I believe they're real. Yeah.
Were you recording on the thermal imaging camera at that time, or were you just looking through it?
That is a good question. The organization that gave me the thermal did not tell me if it was recording or not. I do know that they have a plethora of very good hard evidence, and they believe that these are very much flesh and blood creatures. I don't know where to go from there.
Yeah. I think it's a mixture of both, right? I think that the phenomena is so encompassing that it just combines everything all together. They can be physical one moment, and then they can not be there the next moment. It's really insane whenever you think about it. And then, with you mentioned it earlier about it's possibly the land, right? It's the land that's doing it, and it's just kind of attracting all of this different phenomena, so, supernatural phenomena, paranormal phenomena. But I really think that it's all just kind of lumped in together, and we just haven't really been able to connect all the dots between it, right? Because if you had like a Bigfoot investigator, go to the property or go and investigate it, they're going to say that it's Bigfoot. If you had a paranormal investigator go investigate it, they're going to say that it's paranormal. And if you had a UFO and alien investigator go, then they're going to say that it's, alien and UFO related, when I think that it's a mixture of of all of it, and is depending upon your perspective of the phenomena that makes it what it is.
That is such a key comment, Ryder. You nailed that. You literally you knocked it out of the park on that. You nailed it on the head. As an observer, humans have the ability, anyway, to think something is something. And it appears, like you said, that oftentimes this phenomena can use that as traction when manifesting to become whatever that is even quicker or more poignantly. So yeah, if you're a ghost hunter and you go there, you're going to get some EVPs. Or if you're a UFO guy and you go there, your view, it's almost as if we have blinders on as humans. And whatever we believe is what we believe. That may be what is achieved from the manifestation perspective, from the display of the phenomena to the observer. And I mean, for as long as people have lived in the Uintah Basin, they've been seeing strange things.
That's really interesting. And then you have the very first, not a lot of people know about the very first owners of the Skinwalker Ranch. I think what was their name? Kenneth and Edith Myers, I think, was the very first owners of the Skinwalker Ranch, and they were there for quite a long time. They didn't stay around. They stuck around for a really long time, unlike Terry and his wife, the Shermans. Like, they were only there for a couple of years, and then they like dipped out. I'm pretty sure that Kenneth and Edith Myers was there for like 40, 50 years. So then that begs the question, were they experiencing this kind of phenomenon too? And I don't think there's too much information on them and their experiences. There is really, the whole Skinwalker Ranch story comes a lot from the Shermans. Have you done any investigation on the Myers family?
Yes. There's a lot of good info out there. And this is something historically that a lot of people get hung up on. They're going back through the owners of various properties in the area. And, this guy saw something, this guy didn't. Maybe this guy said something, maybe that one didn't. And basically trying to debunk or maybe find some evidence to further lend credibility to the historical significance of this phenomena in the area. But I think it's important that we look at the bigger picture, which is that for 15 generations, indigenous tribes, including the Utes, have referred to this area as an area of high strangeness, the path of the Skinwalker. And that, to me, is very significant, because 15 generations is no joke. And it is, I would tend to guess that if you really delve down that rabbit hole deeply and talk to all ownership of many of these properties going back historically, that some of the people that aren't saying things are probably doing so to kind of, not stick out, not stand out, not seem crazy, not further this malevolent spirit's power as they see it. But many Army intelligence officials have been part of scientific studies under the umbrella of a variety of intelligence disciplines, and they're finding that there is something very real to it. And I mean, these are guys that went to school to this. They've seen warfare. They know what they're doing. I have no reason to question that.
Yeah, it's just interesting how Kenneth and Edith was there for such an extended amount of time, and then Terry and Gwen Sherman they experienced a lot only in their 2 years. So if the phenomenon was happening when Kenneth and Edith was there, it would be amazing to figure out all the stuff that they had been through. Shoot, like 50, 60 years of being on the ranch, like you would have to experience a lot of stuff. You'd have to seen a lot. Have you experienced any missing time anywhere?
I've had the missing time thing. I've seen animals carved up with surgical precision. Had cameras and other sensors and technologies which have caught things that are indescribable. And yet you almost always end up back at step one, because this trickster intelligence, as it's known in paranormal communities, is able to somehow manipulate the situation to where it can take out key points of information so that you can never get a full picture of what's going on. They love to play games. And that's kind of one of the things I've learned to love about this trickster intelligence. When people say it's all bad, well, it's sort of like that saying, what is that saying? There's bad in the best of people, and there's good in the worst of people. And I think that these thousands of paranormal events, some are malevolent, some are not. There's been some who claim to have had these, like for myself, this was like a spiritual tap on the shoulder for me, to realize that there's a lot going on. There is, powers greater than myself. There are things that can happen just off camera, which are more important than what takes place on camera. And when you start going down the rabbit hole of portals and manifestations and things that are able to literally shift their appearance if it works for them better, that's mind-blowing stuff. I mean, that's quantum physics taken to a whole new level. In my opinion, the Skinwalker is the holy grail of paranormal entities, because it sort of like appears to you as you wish to see it.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of these entities, they aren't necessarily bad or good. They're neutral. And when something happens to us in this 3D physical reality, we're reacting to it off of a very limited perception. And we take that perception to be either good or bad, when that might not necessarily be their intention. They're just seeing it from a different perspective, a different level of reality, where it's kind of self-serving, right? They're just out for themselves, and that just because they're out for themselves doesn't mean that they're bad, right? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that does sum it up really good. It is, it's misunderstood. The fact that these malevolent, if they are, these shape-shifting entities, whatever they're classified, it doesn't matter. The fact that they can do what they do is important enough to me that they should not be destroyed. And I think there's going to be a lot more learned about that. And the priority that this is not just limited to the ground. There are quite literally so many lights in the sky at a time sometimes that you wonder, it may not even be related. However, this area of high strangeness seems to be a prism where these energies can manifest and take different directions. And the way I like to think of it is, it's like an on-ramp to a freeway. And, you got good people using the on-ramp, you got bad people using the on-ramp, but they all need the on-ramp to get to the freeway. So it's very unique.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. That we all need we all get there the same way, right? It's just different kinds of different directions and different roads, right? The destination is the same, just some take a different path to get to the destination.
Totally. It's a
Yeah.
great way to put it.
Yeah. So do you have anything else that you would like to talk about before we end the show here today, Ryan?
Yeah, really quick, kind of like the last thing is the historical groups that have entered this area and for the reasons they entered it. We have Father Escalante and Dominguez coming through in 1776, witnessing a high strangeness, mapping out trails for the Spanish for their gold routes. We have hidden treasures, very possibly this goes back. We don't have enough time to talk about it, but Mesoamerica, Aztec, possible connections, Mayans. There's so many connections to Central America and Mexico and other indigenous tribes. They're very much it seems to be a hub of sorts where so many things have taken place. Teutonic Knights were in, if you've heard of them, like there's a lot of secret society type stuff involved. So there's depending on the pathway you go down, like you said, there's amazing adventures to be found out about this area. So to anybody that is just first listening to this, definitely delve deeper into it. Look into the Teutonic Knights, look into the giants that are said to have roamed there in the past and are depicted on the petroglyphs nearby. Look at the skies, keep your eyes to the skies and look up. And it really doesn't matter which path or venue you take to look down it. You can even look down the Dark Adept route. There is so much information and so many things connecting the same dots that there has to be something there.
Have you been able to look at the sky with military grade night vision goggles to get a better idea of what's going on?
Man, it's phenomenal. I thought I had some of the best gear on the planet. Came to realize I had some guys come up. They had much better gear and phenomenal, man. Phenomenal. It's absolutely unreal what's taking place above our heads and under our feet. And we didn't even go into the underground aspects, so we'll have to do that sometime. But yeah, there's a lot going on. So definitely, if people this is their first time looking into this type of stuff, definitely look into it. Do some Google searches, look around, and prepare to be stunned.
Wait, you mentioned the underground. Is there underground tunnels underneath the? I'll bring you back on for this, but give a little teaser because I'm not aware of this at all.
Okay, there seems to be through a variety of resources, people have seen what can only be called anomalies underground, through ground penetrating radar, through other methods. There do seem to be caverns in areas leading all the way up into the Uintahs. There seems to be the science is really kind of catching up at this point. It seems like it's a little bit behind. No matter how much science you throw at it, there's more to find out. But going back to when a very well-known remote viewer went to the area, he presumed that there was a type of base further than people could realistically probably find or dig in the southwest portion of this green verdant valley. And there is a lot of other remote viewers who have seen similar things. I've had some very scientifically minded people come on the property and do tests. And at Space Wolf Research, there seems to be anomalies underground that are inexplicable, as there is throughout the entire Uintah Basin. There are things that are found there that are hardly found anywhere else on the planet, and from a geomagnetic perspective. spikes in radiation. Very, very hard to describe and difficult to manage realities. And it's all kind of leading down a very intriguing and interesting pathway. So yeah, I think we'll all learn more as we go through this.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. I'd love to bring you back on sometime to talk about that. I'll have to look into that more and realize about the underground. But I mean, it makes sense that there would be, some kind of base underneath the earth there in Utah. So where can people find your show if they would like to learn more about you? And this is your time to kind of plug yourself here.
Sure, you bet. You can check out the podcast at heroparanormal.com. It's on basically wherever you can find podcasts, Anchor, YouTube, Patreon. And spacewolfresearch.com is the website to the property. And it's just a little slice of the pie. I'm not claiming to have it, but it's a big pie. There's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of silent players that are starting to get involved. And I just like the activity. I like the involvement. I like the vibe of everybody kind of being on the same page and working towards a common goal. And I'm excited to see where it goes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. The links to Ryan's show will be in the description of this video. And for everyone else, thanks for watching and listening. Much love to everyone in the chat. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up button to help the channel out in the YouTube algorithm. Share, subscribe, hit the bell icon as well for notifications. My link to the channel on Odysee is in the description. Hit the follow button over there as a backup. And you can catch this episode and any of my other episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts too. And you can download them individually on Spreaker.com directly to your device for free. Thank you again so much, Ryan, my brother, for coming on. I appreciate you a lot and would love to have you back on sometime in the future.
Yeah, man, you are one of the most honest, real, and coolest guys out there doing the thing. And you're doing it with conviction. And you're getting the message out there. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I appreciate you a lot, my friend. And remember, we're not only in a spiritual war, but a war on humanity. Stay aware, stay alert, keep loving your heart for everyone. Stay safe out there. And if you can see through the illusion, you are the solution. See you guys next time.